how do you approach a team like Man City?
Kick them.
Well, yeah. Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the First4LCFC Podcast. Once again, my name is Jamie Thorpe, and the first order of business today is to inform you that we are unfortunately a man down, as our friend and colleague Ed Noon is abroad, probably visiting family in his native Holland. I'm not for sure, but worry not, as Christian Mosen is still here, and between us, hopefully we can make up for the lack of Ed Noon. Chris, I know you're struggling with man flu, which is a very serious illness, and I won't make any jokes about it. But how are you feeling, and are you looking forward to what is probably going to be a slightly less argumentative show?
Well, I was going to say, I think you're wrong. I think we're about 1.5 men down, because I'm feeling very sorry for myself, as I have done all day. But yeah, unless you suddenly got an argumentative streak, I think I'm just going to relax in this one.
No, I will be staying firmly on the fence, as I always do. But we'll continue with the show as we always do and review the big Leicester City talking points. And well, the last 8 or 9 weeks, we've done nothing but praise Leicester, praise Rodgers, praise Jamie Vardy. So the silver lining is that at least we've got something slightly different to talk about. And obviously I'm talking about Leicester's draw with Norwich at the weekend, which felt very much like a loss, probably due to the confidence that many felt heading into the game, myself included. Chris, I know that you picked up on it, that you weren't feeling 100% about the game. But Leicester, look, we were in fine form going in, 8 consecutive wins. Norwich only won 1 in 11. Surely we were going to go on and take 3 points. So obviously we know the result, a 1-1 draw. But Chris, pick the bones out of the performance.
It's strange, isn't it? Because obviously this time last week, I just felt like there's something about this Norwich game that just didn't sit right with me. Whether it be just their bad run of form mixed with our obviously great run of form. And it's like the one thing we highlighted, or the one person we highlighted as the key risk, was the difference on the day in terms of giving them the lead. And it's just the way in which they scored it as well. Like the sort of player Pookie is, like, if you play that sort of higher line and play a ball in between our 2 centre-backs like that, that's his bread and butter. So that's the most frustrating thing about it. And I think, annoyingly as well, was it just before or after that he had that glorious chance where he probably went with the wrong foot as well. So it's not even like it's not like they just scored on the break. I think for the first 35 minutes they were just controlling the game away from home, which, I'm not going to go as far as saying it's embarrassing, but it wasn't predicted. And then obviously making a change before the break, and it was just everything was sort of going against how any Foxes fan would have wanted it to go, really.
Yeah, I mean, the shape was quite clearly wrong. We saw that there were a lot of defensive problems with it early in the game against Villa, but we thought that Rodgers had sort of sorted them out with the tweaks, but that obviously wasn't the case. So the diamond that we were playing gave players like Cantwell and Buendia all sorts of room, and they really made the most of it, didn't they?
Yes, I mean, the diamond, it's an interesting one. Like, to play it in back-to-back games away from home and then at home, it does puzzle me a bit. Like, there's one thing not altering a starting 11, but not to alter the shape, to maybe just be that bit more aggressive and really fill the pitch out at home and play so narrow, it just sort of limited how creative we could be. And I think it was a mix of that, and then even like Ricardo wasn't fully on song. I don't think he was getting sort of dominated on that flank. Cantwell, he's a tricky player. I think we highlighted him again last week, but I don't know. It's just a mix of Norwich playing with confidence, but us not being fully at the races. So especially not in the first half, at least. No.
So it's quite interesting, though, that Norwich are the second team to come to us in the bottom 3 in recent weeks and seemingly really raised their game. Watford came, and I thought that they actually played rather well for a vast majority of the match. Do you think that now, because the spotlight is sort of on us, that teams are almost raising their game against Leicester because the motivation to beat one of the league's informed teams?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, really. Because just thinking back into previous seasons, you'd come away to Leicester and sort of, maybe be a mid-table clash. But now you're looking at Leicester, at present, the second best team in the country. And it's sort of, well, I'm not going to say it's a big day out, but it is in terms of like a scalp. and getting points off a big club. But I think it's a mix of that and the unpredictability of the Premier League this season. Our run was going to come to an end. And I think obviously we'd probably rather it was against, a team of a great stature. But yeah, I think as you've just highlighted, I think teams are going to be going, look, we're going to Leicester, they're second in the league. It's going to put us on the map. So, but it's something we have to contend with. If we want to mix with the big boys, we've got to be dispatching the lesser teams, and that's something we've got. Rodgers has sort of eliminated a lot, but until we're doing that convincingly, like Liverpool do, like Liverpool didn't turn up really at home to Watford, but they get a 2-0 result out of it against an invigorated Pearson's team. So I don't know, it's something we've got to work on.
Yeah, Liverpool really did get away with that as well. If Sarr could work out how to actually kick a ball, I think that game, that was some tragic finishing. Kind of think we dodged a bullet with that one. But yeah, I think as you touched on the shape, the King Power pitch is actually it is on the large side. And the diamond works well when you keep the ball, but we couldn't retain possession. And they were just coming forward down those flanks. Like you said, Pereira and Chilwell, they were one-on-ones constantly. I think Chilwell dealt with the danger a little bit better than Pereira did. For me, Pereira had his worst game that I've seen him have for Leicester with the ball, and that is why I think one of the big reasons why we didn't play so well, because it broke down so often with him, who's such a big outlet for us. I'm not going to criticise him because he's been nothing short of brilliant this season, but he was one of the reasons why I think we struggled. But I suppose before we talk about Iheanacho going off, what on earth went on? All hell seemingly broke loose in the stadium. I'm not gonna lie. I actually missed the ball being put out because I was looking at the Norwich player who was down because I was adamant he was pretending to be injured. So talk me through it, because I presume you've seen it on Match of the Day or on the highlights.
I have seen it. I mean, I had a few drinks at this stage. The time I've got the most clarity over was I was actually listening to it in the car on the way to Nottingham. But from what I remember, obviously it's just there's no rule, or the referee can't tell you to give the ball back to the opposition. So Iheanacho, whether or not he missed what actually happened, or whether he did it intentionally or not, he just proceeded to play on. Starts running towards the 18-yard box, sort of starts running across it. And I think it's Zimmerman who just absolutely no nonsense, just sticks a leg out, and then literally 22 linesmen running onto the pitch. It's chaos. But I mean, ultimately, you should probably just be giving the ball back, especially at that stage of the game where there's not a lot riding on it. It's not like we're chasing the game desperately. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've not watched it in detail, but whether or not Iheanacho was actually aware of why the ball went out of play, I don't know.
Well, I just looked over and there was suddenly just this pile on with Iheanacho on the floor, Campbell buzzing around trying to do his best Scrappy Doo impression and just getting himself involved. Schmeichel sprinting from his end to go and get involved as well. Like, it was just carnage. And then Maddison was sat over the free kick, and I was like, oh my God, imagine if he just decides to bang this top bins. Like, could you imagine the scenes? Because it actually turned it into quite a fiery game. It was a bit needly at times. There were some interesting tackles going in from the Norwich players in particular. I think they picked up 5 bookings in the game, which does mean they get fined, I think. But yeah, the Norwich fans as well added to the atmosphere. They were pretty good to their credit. But I mean, so Iheanacho then got subbed off before half time when Rodgers identified that the shape was wrong. I mean, I suppose we've got to take the positive in that we've got a manager that's not afraid to make decisions, is he?
Yeah, I think, again, I have to agree with you, because there's two ways of looking at it. You can sort of see it as a manager who's clueless, or a manager who says, look, this literally isn't working. I'm going to have to pull you because, well, the shape, the system, you're just not pulling your weight on the day. And I think the most important thing to take of it is the subs' body language. And I think it was noted that Iheanacho, gave Rodgers, like a cuddle or whatever, shook his hand, and probably just understands, it's not working. We want to win this game, and yeah, I see nothing wrong with it. I think it's brave management, but ultimately it's calculated management, and yeah, you got to commend Rodgers for that.
Yeah, and I think he made the right call going back to the shape. Were the better side for the following sort of hour. I thought anyway. But one of the things that I commented on at the start of the game, and I think a lot of other fans have on social media, was the apparent lack of atmosphere in the ground. It felt I had a Leeds fan come along with me, myself and my dad, in our spare season ticket, and he commented after about 10 minutes saying, with you boys in the position in the table that you are, I'd have expected it to be really buzzing, because it just felt quite flat. I mean, that, it does translate onto the pitch, and I know that the players have got to give it back to sort of get everyone going a bit. But why do you think that? Do you think that is just simply because of the expectation was almost like, oh well, we're going to turn up and sort of walk it?
It's blown up, hasn't it? This atmosphere thing out of nowhere. And you are right, I wasn't there. But I've seen enough about it on social media to, have a reasonable opinion as to why I think it is. I think it's a mix of things. Like traditionally, Saturday 3 o'clock is like the time for a football match to kick off. But I think over time, it's turned into like a bit of a flat time to kick off. You haven't got that evening sort of atmosphere. You haven't got that early anticipation of the early kickoff. I think it mix that with, say like a Category B fixture, if you like, in Norwich coming to town. Add the fact we should be just turning up and rolling them over. I just think it's a mix of things, and ultimately, but it's just weird how it's sort of just nosedived. But I think fundamentally for me, it's there's a Saturday 3 o'clock thing. I think if it's an evening kickoff, there's more atmosphere. Obviously, you've got a lot of other opinions on social media, which is a great thing about social media, whether or not the clappers, where people sit, etc. There's no way of fairly assessing that. I think from what I've read, the Wigan game in the cup, that's the first time I think it's Union FS, I think, where obviously they allocate or want fans to sort of be allocated in a certain area, and with it being a lot more flexible for the FA Cup, that would be a great opportunity for them to showcase what they're about. But it's whether or not, I don't understand the relationship between any unofficial supporter group and the club officially. Whether or not the club just want to sort of wash their hands of any association, I'm really not sure. I'm not really willing to comment on that. But it will be interesting to see if the atmosphere for what is probably not going to be anywhere near a sellout is going to be, say, better than what it was against Norwich.
Yeah, I think the club do support Union FS in general. It seems like, I mean, because obviously they organise the displays, the tifos that are brilliant when we do them, and I like the fact that we do them quite sparingly at the big games as well. And I think the club give them some rope with that, don't they? And they allow them to have the banners up and all of that. And to be honest, I think they do a lot of good for the atmosphere. I know that because I sit just next to them. I'm not in SK1, but I'm just around the corner. But you do hear them; they are constant throughout the game. And it just needs, I think it's just a matter of getting people joining in. That's the biggest problem. I've got to say, when we were attacking and we were playing some good football shortly after the equaliser, the atmosphere definitely picked up. But just quickly, what you mentioned about the FA Cup, Union FS have essentially secured a section of 600 like-minded fans to get together, sing up and show what we're capable of. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. I think I've got a seat in SK1 for the game. I don't think I'm within the 600, but I'll be near it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's a good idea. It's the right game to do it in. Like you said, it's Wigan. I don't think they're opening up the whole stadium. Looking at, well, it certainly didn't look like it when I was buying my ticket. So yeah, let's see what they can do. I think it's a good opportunity for them to try something new, isn't it? Right. So look, it's not all negative, is it? Like I said, we came away feeling like it was a defeat, definitely. But I think that's just because we played so well recently. But there are positives within the game, aren't there?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at any like media highlights reel, Leicester sort of came into it really in the second half. They had chances in the first half. It's just a cliche, but it's just one of those days. We had 18 goal scoring opportunities. We only needed 2 of them to go in. on the day we had one, and even that was, well, given as a deflection, if you like. So, but for me, I'm not looking at the game concerned that, wow, we suddenly looked, we dried up, we weren't a creative force. I'm just looking at it thinking, we didn't have our scoring boots on. I think Norwich, as the game went on, they certainly tired, but they did still look dangerous on the break, which is something we need to be wary against these smaller teams that are coming away from home. But like I said, we sort of had the majority of the possession, and we were creating chances. I'm not seeing it as a negative at all, no.
No, like you said, in particular, Vardy's hit the post. He's had another one well saved. Indeed, he's had 2 free headers from corners. Maddison's delivery was brilliant, I thought, throughout the game as well. We've had more shots than them. And I know they had the Pookie ones at the end, but I do only think that was because we were pushing as hard as we were. And credit Soyuncu and Pereira for making 2 unbelievable last-ditch tackles. But definitely could have gone another way. Ndidi as well, I thought was brilliant. What I really liked was during the game, he was almost orchestrating players defensively. He's got that role. He was pulling players around, in particular the midfield 2 next to him, and he was everywhere in terms of winning the ball. As always, he made more tackles and more recoveries than anyone on the pitch. He was magic. Now, he turned 23 today. I mean, how big of a prospect is Ndidi? And do you think that it's a bit strange that no clubs have been linked with him like they have with people like Maddison, for example?
Yeah, it's I'm not used to agreeing with someone as much as I am in a podcast, by the way. But I have to agree with you for the 3rd or 4th time in a row now. And I think, I'm not complaining that he's not linked with other teams. And let's not be naive about it. I can assure you that any good scout or if me and you are noticing it, I think a top scout at a Premier League club will be noticing it. He'd walk into a team like Arsenal. He'd get into the Spurs team. Let's face it. In the Arsenal is a team that's basically lacking someone like Ndidi. They're so spineless. They're just soft in the middle. Like there's nothing to them. Man City were literally walking through them. It was embarrassing at times. So we've got that. So, and I keep referencing it as like this traditional Vieira type box-to-box midfielder who can make challenges that you just don't think are possible. He's craning his leg round like he knows he's going to make it with such confidence. And the thing is, he doesn't give away sort of as many fouls as what you'd expect to play like that. He's not as scrappy. He just seems like a real smooth operator. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if media outlets do start linking him away. But as long as he's a Leicester City player, and he is only 23, so it's quite slightly scary to think what his value could be or what his contract situation actually is at the club at the moment.
Well, he signed a long-term deal, I think it was last year, for 6 years. So the club have definitely got him tied down for a while. As we all know, all that contracts do really is dictate the value you can ask for a player. But yeah, they've obviously identified that pretty early. I'm hoping that he stays for as long as we can. Obviously, I hope we hold on to them all. But you never know. January may well be a bit of a nervous time. So as you said, we've done nothing but agree, which is good. Shows I'm doing my job of sitting on the fence nicely. One area where I know we haven't agreed all season or previously is Harvey Barnes. Now, I sort of wanted to have the opportunity of Ed not being here purely to just say my bit on Harvey Barnes, because in the game against Norwich, he was not good. I will start by admitting that he was air shotting. He was misplacing passes, misplacing shots, scuffing the ball. But what was most interesting, I thought, was the reaction of certain fans around me, whether this is symptomatic around the whole ground or not. But the fans around me were on his back from the moment he came on the pitch. Now, this is a young lad in his debut season at the club, who, let's be honest, had a pretty good season. I know he's not scored as many goals as he should have done, but he's got 4 assists already, which is in far, far fewer minutes than players like Salah, Grealish, Firmino. He's having almost the 10th most shots for any midfielders in the league. inside the penalty area, so he's getting in the right positions, and he's really good for dribbling as well. So he's doing some bits, but why? I don't understand why people were so quick to jump on his mistake. He's quite clearly a confidence player. You just want to see fans get behind a young lad. He's not going to be the finished article yet. We've seen it with players. They need a bit of time to get used to it, to get to get their head up a bit. And I don't quite get why people aren't willing to give him time, which I suppose is where you maybe come in. But I just wanted to see, all I wanted to see was people get behind him, allow him these mistakes at times, because they are going to happen with young players, and let him develop, because he's a hell of a prospect. But I'll let you jump in.
I do agree with you about the whole prospect thing. I'm not going to directly sort of compare him to someone like Jesse Lingard, who's something like 27 or 28 now. I've got the impression he's got the credentials to be like a really good player at the Premier League level, but could he just fade away into being one of these players that we'll always speak about, like someone like Theo Walcott, like constant, he's got potential, but for me, I can't fault his work rate. I don't know, say Sunday League level, there's always that player who's like dead tricky. He's going to be absolutely getting at you at the wing and everything, but ultimately, he hasn't really got an end product. So, yeah, what I find frustrating is that, it's almost like he is direct, but unlike players around him, maybe he should pass the ball a bit sooner or hold on to it a bit longer. I think it's just his general sort of footballing intelligence isn't quite there. He was tearing it up in the Championship, and obviously we recalled him from his loan early. But maybe that's just showing the gulf between the Championship and the Premier League. I've referenced it before. Is he a Premier League player right now, or is he just getting game time because he's a Leicester lad? He's in the Leicester team, and ultimately we are quite short on players in that area. I don't know. Let's face it. If there was more competition for that place, he wouldn't be starting. So
it's an interesting, it's definitely an interesting point of view. I mean, because you can see that he's definitely got the talent from, like you said, his spell in the Championship, and also I don't think that goal against Sheffield United was a fluke. I think that is the sort of thing he could well be capable of. But the amount of times this season where he's done the hard part and he's either timed his run well or he's beaten his man, and he's got into that shooting position in a good position and then fluffed his lines, initially gave me great confidence in him, because it was like, well, he's getting into the right position. And when he scores one, he'll just go on this run. But yesterday, Saturday's game, sorry, it was stuff like, the ball dropped to him and it was almost an identical position to the Sheffield United goal. And it was a swing and a miss. And it was like, you couldn't imagine a more polar opposite ending.
I think sometimes it's worth noting as well that I'm not commenting on where his head's at, but if a player is a confidence player, sometimes playing at home is more difficult. You've got 90% of the crowd, your supporters. Sometimes you don't want that pressure. You want to be, away from home. Maybe in a game where we're not even sort of fully in it, but knowing that he's that player who can really take the game to the opposition. But if it's a game where he's got the ball to feet over and over again and he's lacking confidence, I'm not saying he doesn't want the ball, but if you're low on confidence in front of your home crowd, that's extra pressure that maybe he's struggling to deal with. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think my view on it is that I want people to get behind him a little bit more, or especially the people that sit around me in H block. You all know who you are. Right, we'll move on to Wednesday night's game. So obviously we are in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, against Everton away, who, by the way, have just are very shortly due to announce the fact that Carlo Ancelotti will be their latest manager, which is an interesting appointment. But Duncan Ferguson will be in charge of them on Wednesday, I think. So they've looked better. They've looked a bit tidy. They obviously got a good point against Man United at the weekend. Ferguson's instilled a bit of a work ethic, it seems. I'm not so sure about his treatment of Moise Kean. Did you see that?
Yeah, 18 min, sort of double sub, but
Hectic. You hate to see it.
it's. I mean, surely that's could we not say, what's the difference between what he's done there and what Rodgers did in pulling a player who started the game so early? I know it's
put him on in the first place. I don't know the exact what went on. I don't know how Keane was performing because I didn't watch the game really. But the fact that he put him on and then went, for God's sake, what have I done? And took him off again.
Yeah, it's definitely rare, and obviously it probably only happens like maybe not even once a season in the whole league. So it is strange, but to be fair, when I heard about it, because I didn't actually watch the game, I literally didn't really bat an eyelid because Keane has been sort of woeful, so it didn't really surprise me, to be fair.
No, obviously the social media meme machines sort of popped into action pretty quickly. But so looking from a Leicester point of view, though, so it was interesting. I'd imagine had we won against Norwich, your answer to this might well be different. But do you prioritise rest for the players that have obviously done a lot of, played a lot of football lately, and you want to keep them fit for a title challenge, or do you want to regain some momentum by going with your strongest squad and hopefully getting a win?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy Ed isn't here because that means I get to finish my sentences without hearing him either A, eating his food, drinking his drink, or just generally wanting to disagree with me on anything cup related.
You Ed.
yeah. Hope you enjoy listening to this from Vienna. You've summarised it again. Have to agree with you. It's just tricky as well because of the way the fixtures are falling now. So played on Saturday, playing midweek, and then we got Man City away on Saturday. Following Saturday. Normally I'd be doing my research, looking at the sort of players we're playing in the games in the run up, and the same for Everton. But I just think quarterfinal stages, I think both teams want it. Maybe I've got my cup glasses on, but I just think we're not going to see like 8 or 9 changes. I don't know. I've got a feeling it's two reasons. We want to get a win before the Man City game, and 2, it's the business end of any cup competition. So I expect both teams to make a couple of changes, and whether or not I can predict which ones they are, I'm not so confident about. But I do expect Vardy to be starting. I expect Maddison. I expect Tielemans. I do expect a strong team fundamentally. So yeah, that's the answer.
Well, I think Danny Ward will come in. I think that it's probably in his contract that he's a cup keeper. It wouldn't surprise me if players like Fuchs, James Justin, they'll all return. Perez will definitely play, in my view. Vardy, yeah, I think you're right. He'll start. I think you've got to play Hamza Chowdhury purely because I think that midfield 3 are so important and they cover so much ground. I was saying to you before about Tielemans' heat map against Norwich. He was everywhere. He was absolute, and he looked out on his feet at the end of the game. And I think that you've got to get a little bit of rotation in there purely because we've got 2 massive games coming up, away at Man City and then home against Liverpool a couple of days later. They're going to be demanding games. They're going to have to press hard, and I don't know. I mean, probably. Do you think Wes Morgan will come in?
I don't want to be like isolating a weakness or anything like that, but purely because of the lack of game time he's having, I think changing a centre back, and if they do start, say, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin through the middle, that's causing chaos, and it has been causing chaos for the last few games for Everton. So let's just hope he's up to match speed. He could just have it. I do think, in answer to your question, he's probably likely to start. Actually, having thought about it now, I just hope he's ready for what it's going to be a competitive game. I feel
it definitely is. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, by the way, it always surprises me how tall he is. I always just had in my mind that he was like a little poacher, like a sort of almost like a low in size. But he's a big lad. He's a physical guy. He throws himself around. So maybe Wes Morgan might actually be his. We love Wes. So obviously, we play Everton on Wednesday, and it's only a 3-day gap before Man City. and then a 5-day gap after that to Liverpool, and then only 2 days between that and the game against West Ham. So there's, the games are going to come really thick and fast. So it is a chance for us to pick up a bit of momentum. But in terms of the game itself, I mean, you'd expect Leicester to go out and play on the front foot, wouldn't you?
Against Everton?
Yes.
It's away from home. It's Duncan Ferguson's probably last game in charge. I think his team talk writes itself. I think the players, obviously, they're not going to come out in the media and be like, no, we want him as manager, but I think they're definitely playing for it at the moment. They've got no more incentive than to at least give him a send-off of a victory. Had you asked me a month ago when the draw was made, I thought this was a great draw for Leicester. Right now, it doesn't look like such a great draw. It looks like it could be a real good cup tie, to be honest. All the factors, Goodison Park's a great ground at the best times. So, I don't know whether we're going to be able to sort of take the game to them from the off. I think it's going to be a case of us sort of silencing the crowd, trying to sort of just get the foot on the ball and grow into the game. For me, I don't think. I mean, it'd be great if we do just really go at them, but for me, I think it's going to be a cagey one. I don't see that many goals in this one.
So, I mean, go on then. You might as well expand on that a little bit. Give us your official prediction.
I think penalties. Because it's just straight penalties, isn't it? No extra time. And
this is probably a man that is predicted that we're going to score 30 goals in the last 4 or 5 games. So
I think it's I think 1-1. And well, I'm obviously going to back us to win on penalties, but I expect under 2.5 goals and a good cup tie. Actually, maybe a couple of cards in there.
We haven't had a red card yet this season.
Well, let's not. Well, I mean, I just predicted a card, so maybe it might be the first time. But I do think we'll progress on the night.
There you go. You heard it here first. Lump on red cards. Wes is coming in. He's going to boom Calvert-Lewin's next week and get himself a red. I personally think it'll be. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you're right. It's going to be a cagey game. First goal is going to be very key in this. Like you said, get the crowd to simmer down. If there's a good away support going up, as there always is, they'll make a bit of a difference as well. So I want your prediction, to be honest. But I'll say 1-0. Let's say Damari Gray. Go on, I'm backing him to do something good. So then, obviously, the next game, Man City away on TV. I think it's 5:30 kickoff. Yeah. They, again, I know we were speaking about them a couple of weeks and we were saying they're not really looking as good as they were. Last 2 games have been phenomenal. So if you're Leicester looking at that, A, what are you thinking about the game and how are you feeling? And B, how do you approach a team like Man City?
Kick them.
Well, yeah.
Now, on a serious note, I was listening to Drive Talk Sports. I'm not going to take full credit for this thinking, but basically I was saying that Arsenal sort of just stood off them, gave them so much respect. Not even respect, probably lack of talent from Arsenal's point of view. And they were comparing that to the way Spurs played against Wolves, basically with that Mourinho factor of playing a bit dirty. I didn't watch that game, but by all accounts, they were just fouling Adama Traore and basically just being tactical about it. I think Son was lucky not to get sent off, which is surprising given he's just was in a tackle that ultimately broke someone's leg. But so my point being, we need to rough them up. If we go to Man City and try to beat them by playing a better brand of football than them, it'd take a hell of a performance. I think it has to be a gritty performance. I think we have to almost sort of win ugly, if you like. And that's not to say we're going to get like 30% possession. I think possession stats and stuff like that's going to run close. But I think ultimately we need to let them know they're in for a game early doors. That's not to say I think someone like Chowdhury is going to start. I don't think that's wise at all because I think he is a walking red card. But I think, we need to get in the faces and show them that if we're given, you can't give De Bruyne like space on the edge of it. You can't give him space in the opposition's half, to be fair. Like, we need to cut the ball out before that final ball, ultimately stopping them playing any football and then, grow into the match. because Man City, they're a lethal force at the moment. I just don't see us going there and trying to out football them at all.
No, I mean, they were very, very good against Arsenal. I mean, I listened to it as well. I think they were saying that one thing that Man City actually do very is that they make these sort of tactical fouls, is what they called them, to sort of break up the opposition's play. And I mean, looking at the match stats, Man City made 24 fouls to Arsenal's 9. Rodri made 4 as well, just in the middle of the park. So that might be somewhere where we will get a bit of joy, because we know that players like Maddison, and the way that he sort of, his first touch is always taking it away from a player, isn't it? And he does draw a foul very well. But an interesting stat that came out in the week was that basically there's a stat called, it's like passes per defensive actions, which basically says how many passes the opposition side make before your side makes a defensive action, like a tackle, an interception or something. And we were top of the tree, i.e. that our opposition are making the least amount of passes. So it basically shows how effective our press has been this year. So do you think that is that something that you can try and play against Man City? Is that with the quality of player they've got on the ball, is it wise for us to go and try and play that game?
It's a good question. I did see, I know the table you're referencing, it was that bar chart, I think, that was going around on Twitter. It's technically, Man City have probably got, well, no, they've not probably, they've definitely got the best crop of players. So they should be able to handle, a pressing game. They should be able to play through a press. But then saying that at the same time, they've gone to, or is it, no, I think Wolves earlier this season did they get a result against them? I think, but again, by playing this really intense pressing game. So yeah, they are there to exploit. But that's what I'm saying, to win, playing that way, we have to be firing on all cylinders. It's not a case of like, you and like 2 of us press and the rest stand off. It's like you all do it or you don't, otherwise you can get found out in between the lines. So it's something I don't doubt Rodgers is going to be getting us working on it in training, but we have to be on our game to out-press Man City.
Yes, absolutely. I think the Wolves game was a Adama Traore masterclass, which is a sentence that is not being said often. But he was brilliant that day. But you're right, they played that. They did get up in their face a bit. But maybe we need fresh legs. So maybe Chowdhury needs to play against Everton. I don't know. But all I know is I think that Leicester. It's great to be talking about the fact that we're even discussing how we can beat Man City. I think had we had this conversation a year or so ago, it probably would have been, how do you stop them scoring 6?
Yeah.
So it is kind of nice. They're obviously hitting form. We are still in brilliant form. 8. We've only dropped 2 points out of 27. We're not exactly a bad side either. They will be looking at us as well, won't they? Thinking this is not going to be an easy game, right?
Yeah, I think we've got to look at the bigger picture as well. And I've not got the table to hand, but if Man City win, what does that close the gap to? Do you know off the top of your head?
No.
I think
don't. Normally to the point where Ed sits there and he looks it up.
Basically,
they're 4 points behind us at the minute, aren't they? So if they win, they're a point behind us, and they're at the moment they're 14 points behind Liverpool. So they need to win it realistically.
Exactly. So what I'm getting at is that there's just so much more on the line in terms of just general top 4 or a real outside chance of, well, us or Man City keep in touch with Liverpool. So, yeah, I mean, it is huge in terms of that, and I think adding 5:30 Saturday night, I think the atmosphere. Well, typically the Etihad isn't great actually, but I think just having that evening kickoff's gonna be nice for the travelling fans, if anything. But yeah. I think I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's a tricky one to predict though. I'm not. You're going to ask me for my prediction. I'm not really sure what I want to say.
I mean, well, yeah, it genuinely is a difficult one to call, this one. Like you said about the Etihad, it is an interesting place to go. I've only been there once, and I can't actually remember the game. Not going to say why that was. Student bars, but I think it's going to be. Oh God, I want to be optimistic. I always do. You know what? I think maybe this could be one of those games where Man City away in our title-winning year was a defining game, wasn't it? Huth was on a hat trick after like something like half an hour or whatever it was. It was everything ridiculous that could have happened in that game did. So let's be optimistic. Let's say we're going to go and do it again. Johnny Evans is going to score a hat trick. I think Leicester can nick a win. I think we can nick a 1-0. Basically, that's my prediction.
Well, ironically, the last time I went to the Etihad was for that fantastic victory. That was quality. That was actually a great day out, obviously, and it was just sort of that match where we went, wow, is this actually happening, sort of thing. But again, another topic we need to sort of cover in terms of, well, it's Vardy, isn't he? How does he react to his goal scoring sort of run ending, and in the circumstances that it ended? Obviously, if he does play against Everton, then he might just grab a goal there. But I think he'll be really hungry, won't he, to score as well. And I think his record against the traditional big clubs is, well, it's the best, isn't it? Really, in terms of comparing him to any other striker.
He definitely does love a big game. You're right.
And Man City's defence is their weakness. If they start like Fernandinho at centre back, I think. Yeah, do you know what? I see goals in this one. I've got a premonition coming through. I'm feeling 4-2 Leicester.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
The optimism has suddenly returned. Like, what the hell is this? This is your cold and flu medicine kicking in, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realise it. It says Lemsip every 4 to 6 hours, but I think I've been 40 to 60 minutes on that one. But no, I think just to justify that and just to show it's not me just, saying stuff for the sake of it, I just feel like the Man City defence is something I will isolate as a weakness. I think, having like Laporte missing, and company obviously no longer in the setup, they are massive losses for them. And I think someone like Vardy, with Man City playing probably a high line, I do see us sort of reverting maybe to a bit more of a direct approach, but still trying to play when we can. And in terms of the high volume of goals, I just think it was like, let's just basically, what I'm doing is comparing it to the Spurs Man City Champions League game at the tail end of last season. I just think there'll be an element, a like 15-20 minute spell where it's going to go absolutely mental. Whether that's the start or the end or the middle of the game, I don't know. But it's going to be a little tasty game, I think, with a bit of drama. So 4-2 and Vardy to score a brace.
Yeah. Well, I rate your prediction now. You've given me some confidence in that. I think, like you said, Vardy loves a goal against a big side, and I'm always confident that we'll score at the moment. We do seem to have it in us to dig a goal out of everywhere. We've got quality players throughout. So yeah, you never know why not? Let's be optimistic. We can't be optimistic now when we're sat second in the league. No, I don't know when we can be.
Exactly.
So obviously we've got the 2 games that are coming up, but we've also been linked with a couple of players in the press as they sort of start to warm themselves up ahead of the impending January transfer window. So we have been linked with a central defender from Juventus. You do tend to be much better with the pronunciations. Don't know if you want to take this one.
I'll have a go. It's Merry Demiral.
Right, Merry Demiral, what a name. So he's a young lad, centre half, has only made a few appearances for Juventus this season. He's only actually played twice, but he's good on the ball, strong. He's Turkish, so he's obviously a compatriot of Soyuncu. Are these the sort of players that you want to see as being linked with?
Before, because this came through from an Italian journalist who slid into our DMs ultimately. So I'm not sure whether I don't know how these things work. Whether the agent basically says, "Look, go just put this out in various sort of, get it out on social media." Basically, I'd never heard of the guy. Maybe he's like a wonder kid on Football Manager or something. I'm not so sure. And again, in terms of positions, I'm desperate to see us sort of growing in immediately. it wouldn't be centre-back, but I do understand that if we are looking at European football for next season, we probably need to just strengthen across the field, really. And if this lad is as good as people are talking him up to be for 30 million euros, which is the quoted fee, well, you got to trust the decision makers that they've picked a good player here. Whether or not Sionchu's got any say, whether they even consult him, saying like, "What's this lad like, temperament-wise, or anything?" I don't know. But I'm not doubting our recruitment system at all, because it's proven us so well, especially with these like unheard of signings, like, well, Sionchu to name but one. Obviously, Benkovic hasn't worked out yet. But there's obviously a reason we're linked with him, so fair play to him. But no, in terms of who I'd want to see come in January is someone who's going to make more of an impact, someone who's going to be pushing players like Harvey Barnes, Perez, anyone really who's maybe not firing on all cylinders, just to put that competitive element back in the squad.
Yeah, you leave Harvey alone. So just for context, I mean, it's Nicolo, isn't it, that has sent us his sort of scoop, as it were. He did call the Dennis Pratt transfer before that sort of came into the public eye as well. So maybe it's not completely out of the way, but yeah, I know what you mean. You want a player that's going to come in and sort of, I think we need to be looking almost marquee, don't we? If we're going to properly go for it, say if in January we are still in the mix of being linked with winning the league, or at least pushing Liverpool to win the league, rather, you want a player that can come in and really kick you on and do that, don't you? I mean, I think this lad, apparently he's a pretty strong centre half. He's not he's no nonsense as well in a lot of the way that he plays defensively, especially. Apparently fouls pretty often, which is not ideal. But he could be one for the future. But yeah, probably not the sort of name up in lights that a lot of Leicester fans were hoping for.
No, I think obviously someone who is starting to get linked, and I think will be a big link, is Jared Bowen, isn't it, of Hull City? And if he's available for £10 million, like, I was that bored on Friday night, I was watching the Hull game. Sorry, yeah, it wasn't the best, but obviously I was sort of just paying attention to him, and he seems a good player. But again, like, it'll only be fair for me to say if there's a step up from the Championship is significant. He has to be ready to sort of up his game a lot. But he certainly looks like an interesting player. And I think players like Dwight McNeil at Burnley, someone like that who I think would come in and sort of have a reason to be looking at playing rather than maybe a youth prospect would be. And I actually do think we are going to probably land a couple of those sorts of players that are going to start playing, just purely from what Rodgers has been saying. He says no one's leaving, but he's definitely looking at bringing players in. So, I think as the season goes on, if we are going to finish in that top four or as close to first as possible, we do need to sort of strengthen, definitely.
Yeah, centre back is an area where I wanted to see us add a bit more depth as well, but we'll see. I mean, the club have traditionally played their cards pretty close to their chest when it comes to transfer business. The links do normally come out pretty late on. They do tend to do things quite secretively. So we'll wait and see on that one. But I'd be very surprised if no one at all came in. Put it that way. As always, if you have made it this far, thank you for listening. Please do subscribe. We are on all major podcast providers. Last week was, in fact, our most listened to episode as well, which we are delighted with. It's always nice to see that the numbers going in the right direction, but we really do enjoy doing this. Ed's not here. Chris, sorry. It's usually this time where I do ask if there's anything else that you want to say, or if you have anything else to discuss.
I have got something a bit random, actually. It's not necessarily a topic of discussion, but I seen I was caught with a friend over the weekend. I won't give his name away. But he says that he works with a lady called Helen, who apparently is an avid listener. Helen, you know who you are. So yeah, I just want to say thanks for that, because it's nice. It is slightly surreal to like, because it's happened a couple of times where I'm just sort of talking about Leicester City, and then someone's like, "Oh, do you listen to this podcast?" And obviously it's not common knowledge that I do this sort of outside of work, and it's just it's a bit surreal. And obviously, it's only dead small scale. It's not like we're massive or anything, but it's still nice to hear. So yeah, Helen, thanks for listening. Your listenership is valuable.
And Helen takes what I'm going to say is a very valued place as our first ever shout out. So there you go, Helen. But thank you for listening. The first time I did something like that was for my dad, and then Ed absolutely ripped into him. So I haven't done one since. So listen, on that note, it's been great. We obviously, Chris needs to go and get his head down because he's struggling with his man flu. But thank you to everyone for listening. There's obviously going to be 2 massive games coming up before we do our next podcast. Hopefully we'll get one in over the festive period, but please do keep listening. Please do keep giving us your feedback. We really appreciate it, and hope to see you next time.